Hello YouTube, I'm Andy. I'm here at the Thomann building in the custom shop, and I'm very happy to be sat next to JC from Gibson.
Hey man, how are you? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
We've been hanging out a little bit, and now we're live for the people of YouTube.
We are live, coming at you live.
So you've been in Germany for 1 day so far?
Yeah, probably about 17 hours, but good so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I started in London, and we're hanging out here today, then back to Amsterdam and London, and then back to Nashville.
So you were in my home country.
Yeah,
England,
I was. Yeah,
visited the tiny.
Yeah, we had an amazing. We had an amazing evening with all the artists. We invited all the artists from Europe over just to sort of have a. It was more than a meet and greet. It was really just discuss what's going on and see what they're thinking. And then the later it got, the better the ideas got, because you know how that works. And but it was amazing just to see the artist community all come together, and bands that I know and love, but also musicians that I think a lot of people look up to. And say, man, give us some ideas. And I think the new Gibson is so much more open to ideas. And they heard that, but they didn't feel it. And then by the end of the night, they said, wow, it's real.
Good. That's the feeling I got. We've met a few moments before. And the feeling I get from you is you're very open. You're looking to push the family feeling of Gibson again. And this brand that has a history but wants to move forward. Yeah,
I think it's. I mean, I'm fortunate to be in the position as the new guy, but at the same time, I think one of the things that everyone has in common when you talk about Gibson, there's just this love of Gibson and this respect and this heritage and this iconic status that quite frankly Gibson's earned over time. And so I think what people want is they want access to the stories and they want to know the detail, but they also want to maybe contribute to the future of Gibson. Like, what could it be 10, 20, or imagine 125 years from now? So, we've been synonymous. Gibson's been synonymous with shaping and creating sound and delivering sound, and quite frankly, owning the share of sound. I think more music has been recorded and live with Gibson instruments than any other brand. So for the last 125 years, generations and genres have played Gibson, and I think that gives us the sort of quest going forward is how do we set the next 125 years up for creating, delivering, and owning the share of sound. And it doesn't just come from us making the guitars, it comes from the artist community, and it's the famous and not so famous people that give us the ideas, and that's the confidence we have going forward.
So that's interesting. I was going to ask you about the artists that you have, because if I can talk about Epiphone for a moment.
Sure.
They have been knocking it out of the park with artist endorsements and getting in touch with younger players.
Yeah.
Are we going to see more of that from Gibson?
Yeah, so just so everyone's clear, I mean, Gibson is the brand that everyone knows, but we also have the Epiphone brand, which it's amazing, that story. I don't think that story's been told, and people say, oh, well, Epiphone's just another part of Gibson. Well, actually, no. Epiphone actually it's older than Gibson. It was, it's about 1873 versus 1894. So it's the older of the two, but also the Epiphone brand was crafted over time. And then Les Paul actually introduced Epiphone and Gibson together in the late 40s when Epiphone was having some challenges. So Gibson bought Epiphone, and since then it's always been, the two have sort of seen how to coexist, where Gibson is that sort of aspirational, authentic brand, and Epiphone's that accessible, authentic brand. But I get excited on Epiphone to tell the story in the future. I mean, you see the photo of the Beatles coming off Candlestick Park in San Francisco, their last concert, and they're holding their guitars up like, yes, and they're Epiphones, and then you see other musicians, look at Oasis, and you see when they started playing, it was an Epiphone. So it really is that sort of amazing, accessible, authentic brand, and the Epiphone guys are making an amazing product right now. Like to your point, the Signature Series, I actually was hanging out with Peter Frampton last week, and he had that Epiphone text, and just amazing what that brand can do, but would continue to do if we even told the story more.
Yeah. Speaking about that and the future of Gibson, you were at NAMM, as were we. Yeah. And your booth, the Gibson booth, was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You said you were coming back to NAMM because Gibson was not there till 2018. Yeah. And Gibson came back with a huge bang. Yeah,
and for those of you that don't know, NAMM is this amazing sort of culmination of the music industry coming together in Los Angeles. Typically at the beginning of the year, it was in January, and end of January. And 3 months ago when I took over Gibson, the team said, hey, JC, can we go back to NAMM? We weren't there last year for all those reasons that people read about, and through the obstacle course, I call it. And I said, well, the question isn't can we go back to NAMM, it's will we be ready to go back to NAMM? with the high standard and expectation that people would have, our fans would have for Gibson.
Sure.
And the team, they couldn't answer it right away. They said, we'll let you know. And I said, well, okay, let me know in 10 days or else we're not going, because it's 3 months away. Yeah. And 4 days later, I said, JC, I went in this room and they showed me all the stuff, the product, they showed me the ideas. They said, if we can get the artists back, we'll build a stage. We'll actually let everyone play the new products. And we're going to bring the classics back. We're going to introduce a contemporary range. And the acoustic guys said, we got this generation range we want to launch. I'm like, where did all this come from? And they said, man, we've been working on this, waiting for someone to unleash the future of Gibson by recognizing the iconic past with the classics and then leaning into the future with the contemporary and the next generation guitars from acoustic. And I said, well, let's go. And then you were there. We certainly lit a fuse,
Yeah,
I underestimated it. I thought, we're going to show up and we better, we'll be proud, but I'm not sure. I expected people to kind of fold their arms and say, well, we'll see what happens at Gibson. And all of a sudden, people just opened their arms, hugged us, and said, Gibson's back.
Yeah, it's right to be skeptical of the reaction, but genuinely there was a great familial feeling, and I read a lot of comments online on social media that the Gibson employees seem very, very happy.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it starts. I mean, when you mentioned earlier about family and that, I think it really does start with, there's so much pride in our Gibson Made in America platform and then our Epiphone brand. And don't forget Kramer and Steinberger. We put some attention on those brands. And these are the folks have been working hard to come back. And let's face it, they went through a bit of an obstacle course. And so literally by the end of NAMM, when most people are exhausted and tired with a smile on their face, our team were energized and standing a foot taller as a result of what we thought was at least a step towards success for Gibson and for all of our brands. And it's by no means we're claiming we're good forever, but we'll take that energy and that momentum that we know we've unleashed and now start to roll out our new products and roll out some of our new ideas. And now our artists are coming in with new ideas. So it's sort of lit the fuse to sort of set up the future.
I love the way that you're calling it the obstacle course, the recent history of Gibson, which we're not going to touch on too much because I'm more interested in the future. Yeah. But what has been your biggest challenge since coming over to Gibson from your recent past?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is, do you remember the whole premise of The Wizard of Oz? Yeah. It was basically you had it all along. It just took a crazy journey to reveal that you had a heart and you had a brain and you had the courage. And I think for us, after that obstacle course, I think we needed to go down that road to understand that we, first of all, we have a heart. I mean, our brand is loved, and we have courage because, if you think about Gibson, it's this cause that has to have courage to go forward. And then, we have a brain and we just got to use it in a smart way, And so I think the biggest learning for me was how to manage that in a way that we manage expectations. Mm-hmm. So, everyone, I don't think anyone, no one thought Gibson would go away forever. But it was a question of what's going to happen, who's going to do it, how are they going to do it. And trust me, I have had tons of advice, direct and indirect, of what to do. But ultimately, we get judged, and I get judged, certainly at NAMM, it was basically 5 words. The new guy gets it. And that was all we wanted. Hey, the new guy gets it. And then we'll take that forward. So I think the biggest challenge was really just revealing to ourselves that we got everything we need. But what we have to, I think, pivot towards is, and I've said this a few times, is think about if you're a 125-year-old brand with legacy and heritage, and you can sort of look back and go, whoa, man, we really mattered in every generation, and we did. But if you're a startup, you don't have all that. You're very future-focused, and you're talking about what you have to focus on for the future and how you have to engage and what matters and how you prioritize and all of those things. And by definition, the future matters more than the past for a startup because they're building it. Mm-hmm. And if you make one big mistake as a startup, you might go away. So I love this notion of this sort of positive collision of the 125-year-old heritage brand meets the startup culture. So it's the 125-year-old startup is sort of the challenge that I'm putting to the team to say, let's be future-focused, but at the same time leverage our iconic past. And I think that's the right cultural balance to set moving forward. And that's the challenge now, is to not just say it, but actually start doing it.
I get that, this sort of safety of the past. and having less fear of going forward than a startup, because I'm now here at Thomann, and Thomann is a kind of a heritage brand in itself and a family company.
Yeah.
But I have my own YouTube channel, which is brand new.
Sure.
And that's kind of fearless because I'm just moving forward.
Yeah.
But with Thomann, I started working here. It was like, okay, this is a real job now.
Yeah.
I need to take it seriously. And then it turns out that I should have just had fun all along.
Well, that's just it. And I think you have to, I mean, once you're comfortable in both places, I mean, if you look back at our history at Gibson, I mean, that era in the 50s was amazing. Yeah. Like the courage and the conviction of making instruments that no one said, oh, let's do a shape like that, like some of these Les Pauls, let alone the Flying V or let alone the Explorer, and those were all radical changes in the 50s. And they've stood the test of time because of the playability and the artists, and you know the emerging vision we have is really built on what we've already done. The vision for Gibson's pretty simple. We want to be the most relevant, we want to be the most played, and we want to be the most loved guitar brand and brands again. You know, so that's where we get to go. But this whole notion of being focused on the future, you know, once we truly represent the past properly, which you saw some of the guitars, we went back to our classics, we did 50 spec, 60 spec, true classics. Once those are done, those are in the range. Now we can sort of say, hey, 10, 20, 30 years from now, what will we look back? And are we going to look back and say, well, we were the best guardians of the 50 years ago? Or do we say, actually, we came up with some ideas to help shape the future of sound as well? And that's a really good challenge to our design team, to the luthiers, to all of our partners who are interested in yes, embracing the iconic past, but also leaning into the innovative future.
It's quite a tough challenge, I think, for Gibson, because Gibson players almost feel like they own the brand because it's such a widely known name. Yeah. If they buy a Gibson guitar, they feel like they own a piece of the history.
And that's fair. I mean, I think that's absolutely fair. And let's turn that to the absolute positive, which is without that fan base loving and pushing and absolutely demanding Gibson to do what's right for the Gibson brand, it could have gone down a whole twisted path. And you've seen that movie before when brands should have turned right and they turned left, and 5 years later, they literally don't exist. So the fan base, Gibson fan base, is the one that truly got us through the obstacle course. But I think once you listen to them and you respond with what they're asking for, I mean, that was literally what everyone said at NAMM, was finally you did what we've been telling you to do, the classics. And we're like, okay. And then what that does is it probably gives you permission to say, what could we do next? And we'll get there. We don't have to rush. We're aggressively patient, but we're excited about what's coming out in the next even few months.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, at NAMM you premiered some new guitars for 2019, so there's sort of second wave of 2019. Yeah. What's coming next? Well,
we used to, and I think everyone understood, and it wasn't necessarily wrong, but we used to do these model year launches, and every year we'd put the model year on it and say, oh, what's the new 2020 or the 2019 or the 2018? Well, I think from what I've certainly learned over time and in my life as the president of the Levi's brand, is that there is no model year on a pair of 501s or on a classic jacket. No one says, ooh, do you have the, are those which, now you might say, is it the vintage 70s, or was it the orange tab, or was it the Big E? I mean, there's lots of cool heritage built over time, but it wasn't defined by a model year. And I think, one of the first things that we said was, why don't we back off the model year, build our core range so that we always have the classics accessible, and then we'll start putting new ideas in play and dropping certain things in throughout the year. We're always going to lean on our artists for our signature, and for some of our great partners, we can do some exclusives and a few different ideas that they help us create and shape. And then you end up with this sort of much more natural flow of amazing guitars at the right time. Yeah. And that's what we're doing.
So I love that you can walk into any store and buy Levi's 501s anywhere in the world, and they are Levi's 501s. And for me, that was the problem with Gibson. People want a Gibson Les Paul standard. Yeah. And they want other things, other options, other tuners, other future things, but they want a Les Paul standard.
Well, and let's face it too. I mean, let's you mentioned that, and so I think that what I've learned in my time, I was in way back in the day. I also had the privilege of being the presidency of Solomon and Solomon North America, and I was with Solomon during its probably most explosive era, Solomon Sports, of thinking about technology and innovation, but it was very driven by insights from athletes and what were the solutions they were looking for. And same with, even at Levi's, it was very purposeful, like looking at fit and looking at style and looking at material evolution. And I think at Gibson, if we take that same approach and get those insights, where brands typically go wrong is when they become novelty, not innovation. They're novelty driven.
Yeah.
And I think what happened, quite frankly, with Gibson is it entered that novelty realm with some robotic tuners and a few things. And the purists said, okay, not only are you not representing your past properly, you're now taking us down this interesting journey into the future that I'm not sure we're into. And you end up in this, probably the worst place to be as, not even as a brand, but as a human, is the mediocre middle ground. You stand for nothing for everyone and everything for no one, and now what do you do? And I mean, I'm not accusing that of Gibson, but I'm saying that's what you want to avoid. And so I think for us, the more you understand how to truly replicate and leverage and be true to your DNA and your heritage, the more permission you have to lean into the future. And that's what we found at Levi's when we completely cleaned up the range, both for men and for women, and we rebuilt it on a platform of authenticity. Then authenticity can actually liberate you on a journey to innovation, which is what we'll do at Gibson.
I mean, sitting here as a guitar player now, I'm feeling quite emotional because it's
real.
something I wanted to hear from Gibson for a long time, and it seems like you're the guy. The new guy gets it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. There's a team, and it's a journey, and all the things that come together. But if someone told me a few months ago, you'd not only be sitting here with you and discussing not what's going to happen, what we actually did, and I think that's really important for everyone to hear. I mean, a lot of people through media and that can talk about what they're going to do or big ideas, and then some of them don't actually happen. You were there, you saw it, you saw real guitars, we saw real people playing it, we got real opinions, and all those opinions were very, very positive. So I think it's very important that we set goals, we do what we say we're gonna do, we do it, and then that gives us the confidence to go to the next step and the next step, and then hopefully we'll look back 5-10 years from now and say, wow, that whole pivot point in 2019 set the conditions for success for the next generation of Gibson.
I think that moment is right now, set here.
Yeah, so do I.
It's a big moment.
I believe it.
We're going to open up the live chat in a moment because there's some questions. We've got an iPad here. We can see these questions flying up. But before I do, I've got to ask you the most asked question because I reached out on social media about Thomann. And the most asked question was...
And I don't know what this is yet, folks. So.
Do you still get free jeans?
I will tell you, that journey at Levi's was unbelievable. When I was a kid, true story, now you're getting me emotional. My mother played an Epiphone guitar. I got a photo of her wearing Levi's jeans and playing her Epiphone. And she would always say when we were kids, like, I'd rather you have one pair of Levi's than 3 pairs of anything else. And we moved around a lot. And wherever we went, we were the new kids. She goes, hey, put your Levi's on and you'll be all right. And so when I had the chance to be the president of the Levi's brand for the last 7 years, it was just an amazing opportunity. That team is amazing, what they've done and how they've done it. And I was... a contributor to it, but it brought it back to what it should have been, an iconic brand. And so when I left, they did give me this amazing declaration that, yes, we not only expect, but would like you to be in jeans and Levi's. And by the way, they didn't have to do that. I'm going to be in Levi's. I mean, I live in my Levi's.
You said you're wearing a jacket, right?
Never not lived in my Levi's here today. This is my Levi's jacket. But at the same time, I think it's... the playbook that we created and executed and delivered at Levi's was basically the same type of thing, like leverage the iconic past, but also lean into the future. And if you think about the dynamics today in fashion, it's so many different ideas and opportunities coming at you. But if you fundamentally have a brand where the center point is authenticity, and whether it's Levi's or whether it's Gibson, that is your starting point, but also it's also your end point. And if you stay authentic...
It's all you need, isn't it?
It is. But
as you said, you have
to work hard to get it.
Yes, you have what you need, you just need to use it.
Yeah, and by the way, you and I know that. You grew up with Levi's, I grew up with Levi's. I can tell you that next generation who maybe aren't growing up with Levi's need to get introduced to them, or aren't growing up playing guitar, need to get introduced to guitar. And I think that's the common ground, I think, for heritage and authentic brands, is saying, okay, we know the loyal Gibson players, and what they want is be true to who you are and stay loyal. Good. Then there's people who played Gibson, but they left us for a few other, instruments. And then okay, bring them back for all the right reasons we talked about. But the most exciting fan is the future fan, the fan that has time and choice and a bit of money and say, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to?
So you're talking about young musicians?
Yeah, young or not even musicians.
How are you going to bring in young musicians to be playing Gibsons?
Well, not even musicians. Just say, like, I'm a kid, and do I ask my parents for a new iPhone? Do I say, let's go on a vacation somewhere? Or do I say, I want a guitar and I want to start to play guitar? And I think we have to understand our role in the industry at large, you know, all of us together, all the amazing brands and partners to say, how do we say, when that kid has a choice, how does he say, I want to play music. I don't want to just feed off other people's content. Sure. I want to be a content creator. I want to be creative. I want to actually play something. I want to record it, and I want to be part of it. I want to be on the stage in the future, not just in the, you know, as a fan, and so in the audience. So I think our opportunity is to try to say, how do we continue to be accessible and aspirational at the same time? That's where Epiphone comes in. Sure. That's where someone comes in, and maybe Gibson, they can't afford it right away, but they look up and go, man, one day I want to have that guitar. That's cool. Be aspirational. But I think what we're finding is that even with all the different genres today, if you go to, I mean, I was at the Grammys, it was great to see more guitars being played across more generations of musicians, whether it was Dolly Parton tribute right through to Post Malone, more genres. There was Post Malone playing a Gibson J200 sitting there, but at the same time, you had other amazing Brandi Carlile on the country scene showing up. So even that snapshot of the Grammys was like, I was like, wow, the guitar is woven itself into generations and genres live in front of us at the Grammys. Yeah. That's a good indicator of the future. So, I mean, there's a lot in that, but I think the guitar world and the creation of music for the next generation, it's right there in front of us.
Thanks. I think there's some questions running up on the live chat, but
you hit it.
Before we do that, the actual real number one question was, you're going to move forward with Gibson. You've come to this massive history, a massive legendary history about the quality control.
Yeah.
How are you going to manage this quality control in the future?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And again, know that I read a lot. I mean, I travel a lot, but I read, and I'm on all the different forum chats, and you might not find me throwing my own posts out on Instagram, et cetera, but I consume everything in terms of details, and I'm not afraid to read. So we've put a pretty interesting program in place in even the last few months. So we've got a new chief production officer. How's that for a fancy title? But
chief production officer.
Which you needed, because we have these different facilities, and they're all kind of entities onto their own and doing their own thing. I said, what's the common standard for Gibson? And how do we take what is arguably the best quality and the most prestigious guitars and make them even better as others catch up? And so we've done some amazing pivots, and we'll invest more in our factories this year than we've probably invested in the last 10 years. And that's a real number. That's and it's things like, if you can imagine in a factory, let me take you into the factory setting. There's dynamics like putting the right lighting in so you can actually see the guitars better. Different factories had different lights. Just think about that.
So
just like in your home.
If you can't see the guitar, you can't check how good it is.
And then what we would have is some of our partners with much better lighting would say, well, we inspected your guitar and we saw things that you didn't. I'm like, how did that happen? So guess what? We've now invested in all new lighting in our factories, and it's making a difference. Another one was we touched the guitar, and when we hand make our guitars, our Gibson guitars are handmade in the US, and we actually touched them about 74 times. Just think of that. So there's 74 opportunities for something to get a little ding, a little hit. We said, what if we cut that in half and actually made it more what we call sequential rather than moving it around? So we've already changed that. We touch the guitar less than half of that now. And the person that passes it to the next person says, I'm passing you a perfect quality guitar. Okay. It's over to you. We don't wait till the end to see how it comes out. So we've already changed that. And then this other one, which is just an amazing, and this is a lot of inside information I'm giving you, but it's amazing when one of the quality issues, which is like the finishing, you know, I just want the finishing to be like right at that. When I open that up, I just want to just like hug my guitar.
It has the smell as well.
Yeah, totally, of that nitrous, of the whole thing. And so, and what we realized, there's these particulates that are in the air in a natural factory environment. It's basically dust. It's wood dust. We actually are making guitars with lots of sanding and buffing and cutting, and then those guitars go through an amazing craftsmanship assembly to where they get finished. And that environment just creates all that. So we declared the war on dust. It's a real war. We've put new, not only new equipment in, but new blockers so that we actually separate our production facility in a way that each can actually pay attention to their own quality, so the synergy effect is much stronger. And so those are, I mean, I could sit there and tell you, oh, trust me, the quality's getting better. I can give you examples of better lights, handling the guitar fewer times, and creating a war on dust, and that's just getting started.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And you've done all this since October?
We've done it. It's literally, I'm not telling you what we're going to do. It's done. And there's more to do for sure. We're always continuous improvement and all that. But we're really excited. And I think it's a testament to the team when you unleash the power of a team and say, I didn't have to put my hands on my hips and what are you going to do about it? They're like, here's things we can do, JC. We just have never really been able to do it either from an investment point of view or just a leader who would listen to us. So I'm just, you know, in a lot of ways, I have one of the easier jobs. I'm just opening myself up to listening. And then once you get good ideas, the worst thing a leader can do is take a good idea and not let someone do it. So I'm pretty much in yes mode right now at Gibson.
Well then, as you're in yes mode, I've got some quick fire questions for you, because we've talked about Gibson guitars and yourself, but I know that people want to hear the JC. Who is JC? So I've got some simple yes, no, and or questions.
Here we go. All
okay,
right.
just a few hundred. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
All dog.
All dog?
Well, I'm a dog lover, and yeah, cats, I'm not, yeah.
Okay. Stonewash or tie-dye?
Oh, tie-dye shirt, stonewash jean.
Good answer. Explorer or Flying V?
Flying V.
Superman or Batman?
I gotta go, I'm going Dark Side Batman.
Okay. Name one of the 7 dwarfs.
Oh man, I can probably, let's just go with Sleepy. As as you fight through the jet lag, yeah.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Only if the crust is thick, the cheese is fresh, and then there's ham in there as well. It's otherwise known as the Hawaiian.
Yeah. That was one of the third questions people are asking, because it's a big internet thing at the moment. Good answer, thank you. What sound does a dying seal make?
A dying seal, it makes half a sound when it's above ground, and as it sort of slips into the ocean, it just gets muffled. So it starts with a muffles down, I would imagine.
We need to check that, we need to research that, but I'm fairly confident that that's 100% correct.
Yeah.
Late nights or early mornings?
Well, this is my life dilemma. I'm both.
Mine too.
I really am. I'm both. I'm not afraid to get up early. I mean, especially, as we're, that's, I think, another common denominator of, everyone says, oh, it's Gibson and you're lucky and you've done all these cool things and Gibson's back. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you know what we did? We worked harder. I guarantee you, I can guarantee you the Gibson team got up earlier and stayed later at NAMM than any other team. That's like a fact, because I was one of the last guys leaving. I was one of the first guys coming, and we're not claiming.
I wouldn't mind fighting you for that competition, actually, because we were like 2 or 3 hours, and Phil over here was editing back in Germany.
But it's a good fight, right? So I'm an early morning guy, and those that know me know that I'm not afraid to stay up late. But I think that's also, early morning is my time when I can get stuff done, and late night is when you actually can collaborate and share and get energy. And some of the best ideas come out at night, honestly, for me. So just like the other night in London.
Yeah. I'm a shower idea kind of guy. So sometimes I have to cut it short. Yeah. I apologize for that. Mountains or beach?
Oh man, I love surfing and clearly I love the mountains.
You got to choose one, huh?
Yeah, if I choose one, I would say the mountains.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. But we do Paradise Days when I lived in Portland, and you could literally get to Mount Hood, and then on the way back you could windsurf or kite surf in the gorge, and then you get out in the afternoon and drive straight to the beach and do a sunset surf session. So we would do these Paradise Days, we'd call it, where you'd be on the mountain in the morning, in the summer because it's a glacier, and then end up on the beach and then end up in the brew pub. It's a pretty good day.
I live in Austria, so we have mountains and then a lake.
Yeah, exactly.
You get the work and the pleasure.
You can do that, yeah.
Okay, burgers or tacos?
Burgers.
Strat or telly?
You know what? I just, and I'm a fan of all of those shapes, and I think, I think the Strat, you just got to go to the Strat because it's just, again, it's legend and iconic. And,
sorry, Chris is in the corner over there moderating the comments, and he's a telly lover.
Yeah, hey, you know what? But that's why you ask the questions, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no wrong answer.
I think, I've seen all those guitars in action, and yeah.
Okay, then let's go back to Gibson. What would your custom Les Paul look like?
Mine, I mean, I think there's, first of all, I think you go to the absolute most classic one you can imagine, which is just get a burst and get that set up and picking the wood and everything you can imagine.
Is there anything in here that's...
I mean, all these, The
yellow one, maybe?
Yeah, that's a bold statement. I actually, if it's a Les Paul, I love this whole sort of look. I mean, you just go classic black and then get that binding that's got that sort of antique look, so it's not the bright white, but it's just set up well, and then you've got the classic gold pickups, and I just think that's an amazing sort of, and then if you sort of want to pull it all together, right? I'm eating my burger, I got my Batman suit on, the seal's dead, and then all of a sudden you pick up that guitar and
you're on the mountain.
There you go, right? And I'm on the mountain, yeah.
Man, we could just take a moment to think about that.
I'll tell you that one of my favorite ones is that new Chris Cornell, that olive drab.
Olive drab.
Oh, I want to paint my Jeep that color,
Yeah.
That's an amazing color.
I saw the film with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga in it, and he's playing something the same color.
So we have that. I actually have both of those guitars, like those guitars.
No.
They were at NAMM. I should have showed them to you. Oh, so we've got that J45, and then we've got that ES, and we have them both. And that's the one, obviously played Shallow on, and we have those guitars, and I don't know if you saw Access Hollywood they came and said, can we see them? And I showed them to them, and then they asked me questions, and they said, what do you think of his skills? I'm like, yeah, man, he's pretty good. He actually plays, and you try to replicate how he plays. It's pretty intricate, and then he's found his singing voice clearly.
You mean?
Yeah. And so I sort of said that. Well, then the headline was, Gibson CEO endorses Bradley Cooper as an artist, and then his folks reached out, and I was supposed to see him last week at the Grammys, but he ended up going to the BAFTAs, and Gaga went there, and we're all going to sync up sometime in LA. But yeah, those were the real guitars he played, and clearly that's again another sign of authenticity. As the Stars Born tried to be authentic, they actually said, what can we surround ourselves with authentic, guitars, and of course Gibson was the choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, people watching this, hit us with your questions. Chris is over there in the corner. Maybe he can fire some at us also that he's seen flying through the comments.
Yeah, who's sitting at work wondering, what's going on here?
Why are you not working?
By the way, we're at work. We're at work. This is us working.
Do some work. Click some buttons and sell some things and buy some things. We've got a few people that I know in the chat, so let's reach out. We've got someone called Banana Man 397.
White, hit it. What's the question?
It's not a question. He just says, all guitars are best guitars. And that's a lovely sentence.
Banana Man, I love it.
The Chris comment, we've got, hey Henning, cheers from Denmark. Love a nice telly, love the Gibson tributes.
Cool.
What's up? Any plans to build a Gibson amplifier?
Oh, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Well, no. When we talk about our vision to sort of create and shape sound, and that sort of, we made amps in the past.
Yeah.
And I think if we just said, oh, yeah, we're going to start making all these different things, we said, hold your horses there, new guy. Get back to let's just show what you can do. So I think, but as we go on our journey to understand how to continue to sort of shape and deliver and create an own sound, I mean, we got to look at that. We have to look at it. And that's, again, fans saying, hey, back in the day when you made some amazing amps, what happened? And I got to tell you, I don't know. Like, who made a decision when you were making great amps to go, well, let's not make these great things anymore? Like, I don't even know how that would happen. And so it's not lost on us that there's a fan base out there that would love to, reconnect their Gibson guitar to a Gibson amp, and we'll look at it. We'll listen.
Good. Sounds great. A new question just popped up. The Holy Grail, the 1959 Les Paul, turns 60 this year.
Yeah.
Are you planning something special beyond anniversary editions and/or limited runs? What's your plans with the 60th anniversary? Yeah,
so the great question, by the way, and astute date dynamics. So thanks for picking up on that. But for us, I mean, the first thing, the best thing we can do to that 59 Les Paul, the best tribute we can do is actually make it true to its spec for everybody. And I think that was really important statement from us, was that, yes, of course, expect the custom shop. Yes, expect some 60th anniversary and some signatures and some more details. And we're working with our artists on a few things. But, you know, let's face it, that's an amazing, and we're expected to do that. And that's an amazing moment. But that's for the few. But how do you just make sure that everyone has access to that sort of era true to its spec? And that's the first thing we've done, is made our classic, you know, 59 burst like true to its spec, which is, you know, goal number one for a Gibson fan.
So when you're talking about making it more accessible, are you talking about reducing prices or making?
Yeah, I think it's more not just you know, when we make a customer, which are amazing, and I mean, we have this fan base that as the custom guitars, whether it's through Slash and a signature, whether it's through a one-off custom. I mean, there's always that that artist and that player who covet that, but there's a lot of people that just say, hey, just give me the classic, you know, Gibson Les Paul in its original spec, and maybe I can afford that, or maybe I can pay that, or I can wait for that. But why wouldn't you just make one of the best guitars that known to mankind? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you just make that true to its spec all the time? And that's what we did.
And surely by doing that, like you were talking about year-specific releases, but actually going away from that and releasing.
So literally, as of right now, we will not date stamp the new classic, because how do you date stamp a 59 burst?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Oh, how is it 2020?
How is it different to last year?
It's not.
So
I mean, it shouldn't be different to the original spec.
And also from a production point of view, if you're producing the same guitar all the time, surely it must become cheaper, and then you can pass on that saving to a potential customer.
Yeah, I mean,
someone laughing in the background.
If you get, I mean, you know, if you were making iPhones, you might be right. But I think when you're making handcrafted instruments and you're always balancing the quality of the wood with the craftsmanship, I think we certainly, and you'll see, I mean, and our fans will see, we've completely recalibrated some of our pricing to get, in some ways, more accessible. Absolutely. By stripping some of the novelty off of those contemporary guitars and just putting true innovation. Then you can, when you respec it, you can actually put the appropriate price in there. But at the same time, you know, we have no issues, and I think our fans would expect that for the level of quality and for the iconic guitar you're getting, you know, we're going to make sure you get what you pay for. The price value is going to be amazing, but it doesn't mean just because we can sell a few more, it all of a sudden means our scale gets way better. You know, I think our investment is around, you know, making the absolute best guitars we can make with the craftsmen and with the available, not only technology, but also, quite frankly, the wood, you know? Sure. And so, but watch this space, but I'm excited about where we're going. And back to the question, I mean, it is the 60th, and we got some exciting plans.
Mm. Talking about wood, what about sustainability now? Because wood is literally grown on trees. Yeah.
And you know, again, I think in my prior lives, I've always had an angle on sustainability. And one of the things I've learned is that sustainability is really, it's not a destination where you just go, yep, we've done it. I think it's a real journey. And I think for us, there are small specific things, and then there's big breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. But the most important point, I think, for us as an industry right now is that we are one of the very few industries, and I'll say it, I actually haven't even talked about this to anyone, but the number one sustainable solution you can put into your product is called durability. Make your product last longer. Make it sustain its life cycle longer than anyone anticipated, and that way, that's your starting point. Mm-hmm. And we have guitars that are 100 years old, that are 50. I mean, some of the most coveted Gibsons are 60 years old. So think of cars from the 60s. Think of other products. Think of electronics from the 60s. Sure. They're all sitting in some landfill somewhere. I hope to God there's no 59 burst sitting in a landfill. You know what I mean? Like they all still exist. Yeah. So I think our number one focus is continue to make guitars that are going to last for generations to come. That is a fundamental definition of sustainability. Don't make things that are going to cycle through and end up in the wrong place. Make them put in the hands of players and artists who can pass them down to their kids. So that's number one. And then I think us understanding how to be custodians of the wood sourcing and all those dynamics that come with it. We have a whole program that we're looking at in terms of how to actually balance sustainability with the best sound and quality, and it's a continuous journey.
That's an amazing answer. So thank you so much. I'm just going to look through the chat to see if we've got any more questions for you people at home or in your office where you should be working.
This is better.
Yeah, lots of discussions going on about Kramer. Asking if you're going to bring Kramer up to compete with some of the other sort of those style of guitars.
Yeah. I mean, you saw a little bit of the Kramer. We put a little bit of attention on it at NAMM. And I mean, it's just, come on. Eddie Van Halen, right? I mean, Kramer. And back in the late 80s, Kramer was one of the leading guitars in the world, let alone the U.S. So, I think it's literally one step at a time. If we came out to NAMM and showed everyone the awesome Kramers and we didn't pay attention to Gibson or Epiphone, people said, whoa. So I think we're pacing it right. We put a lot of attention on Gibson, a little bit on Epiphone, and then we certainly had some Kramer there. And now is that I think the best thing is that people can see that we're open to ideas. Guess what? The same people that are going to ask, what about Kramer, can say, well, if only you could do this, or what about bringing this back? So guess what? You heard it live. We're open for ideas on Kramer.
Awesome. That is, generally this whole conversation has been very uplifting.
Cool.
And this is live now, but it'll be available forever, and it's a sustainable video.
So
people are going to come back to this. I really hope that we can meet again in the future.
Sure. And
come back to this point, and you can say, hey, Andy, I did those things I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And we can look back maybe 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, and you're going to see, in a few months, you're going to get the new product through. You guys are going to have it, and I just did an amazing tour here and checked everything out. And if anyone's ready for the future, it's right here. So super impressive here. And at the same time, our new guitars are going to come out in the next few months, but also in the next few years, getting more ideas and more collaborative with artists and partners, I think, is the way forward. So I'll definitely come back and not only tell you what we did, but I'll tell you what we're going to continue to do.
Awesome. Where do you see Gibson in 10 years' time?
I think Gibson is synonymous with, literally shaping and owning sound through our guitars and things that create sound with guitars. And I think it's back to its earned iconic place on this earth. And what's amazing for me is that Gibson is a brand that isn't just, and it sounds crazy, but it's clearly a guitar brand. It's clearly for guitarists. But at the same time, there's this love of authenticity right now. And I think I see Gibson as literally one of those brands that people will point out and say, you know what, that's a brand that I love. Even if I don't play guitar, I respect and love the iconic authenticity of what it stands for. And in the style of someone's life, if they connect to music, whether it's rock and roll, country, or whether it's jazz, or whether it's acoustic or electric, I think people will say, wow, I somehow have a connection, and my connection through Gibson, whether I play or listen, is authentic. And I think Gibson will continue to be one of the most authentic brands beyond just a guitar brand. And I think that's where we'll be in 10 years from now, is known as authenticity, but also something you can viscerally play. As I said, most relevant, most played, most loved brand.
Cool. Well, I'll meet you here in 2029, and we can shake hands and say congratulations.
I'll be here.
I have 2 more questions for you, and then we'll run it, because I know you're a busy man. Question from our community is, what about Fishman Fluence pickups in Gibson guitars? Is this the thing that may happen?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm kind of repeating myself, but we had to go back to our specs of what made us famous and our DNA. But now, there's never been more permutations and combinations of choice of how to create sound. And again, I was at NAMM. I went to all of our all the other booths. I saw what was going on at Taylor and Fender and Martin, and also some of the other brands that are trying to innovate going forward. And I think we all have a collective goal, is to continue to put the right combination of product and brand together to create and innovate sound. And that's a common denominator for all of us. And I think some brands do it better than others, but why would we stop trying that? So that's a long answer to a question that says, would we take that specific product and put it in? The answer is, we're open to every option. If ever there was a window of opportunity to look at every option, it's probably right about now at Gibson.
That's great. It's so great to see that you're so open to working with anybody. So speaking of working with people, and we've established that Gibson is going to get this great foundation of your history, and then you're going to move forward. Do you think if a player, for example, like John Mayer came to Gibson, would we ever see a Gibson with a single coil?
Yeah, and again, what's amazing, and again, I think you've worked with artists, and some are they're like surgeons with their guitar. They know every single part of it. Others, quite frankly, are like, I play, man, as long as it's in tune, I'm good. You guys tell me what I need to help create the sound I'm looking for. And so as we rebuild our artist platform and our, I've said to our team, I don't just want signature models for the sake of signature. I want collaboration. Mm-hmm. And if you think what's happened in other industries, that's where the breakthroughs are happening. Some of our most amazing breakthroughs at Levi's happened through collaborating with Google. We did the first ever wearable jacket with Google, wearable technology. Cool. Collaborations with amazing iconic designers like Diane von Furstenberg, and we did this amazing women's movement with her. So I think collaborating with artists, and they say, man, we want single, could you do this? If you look at, do you know Jared James Nichols? So he just, his signature guitar, his Blues Power Epiphone is coming out. He stripped that thing down to its core essence, and he said, that's it. And he's now, you'll find him on stage, whether it's with Leonard Skinner or playing on his own, but he's an amazing, amazing guitarist. And he's sort of the next generation that A, knows what he wants, and B, knows how to then brief it to us. Mm-hmm. So we're open to any idea.
That's great. And I think we can kind of round it up there because this has been amazing. This has been very emotional meeting you because as a guitar player, we've wanted Gibson to do this for a long time. Cool. And it's I'm proud to be sitting here with you, hearing in my own ears and on your speakers that this is happening. Gibson is back. Gibson is helping players play Gibson. It's about making that connection between you guys and this man here and his team. Someone pointed out that it's no coincidence that there have been two saviors with the initials JC. And I think that it's no short claim to call you the Gibson savior.
I appreciate that.
But also maybe just an enabler, because you obviously have a great team behind you.
Absolutely.
And it's so nice to hear that the top tier is listening to everybody.
Yeah, no, and appreciate your time. And just for clarity, the JCs he's talking about, one is Johnny Cash. So he was the savior. And then the other one, in the words of my other friend JC, Joe Cocker, honestly, I always tell people we get by with a little help from our friends. And that's kind of my motto. And right now is we need a lot of friends to help us out along the journey. So don't be shy with your comments. And we're not going to be perfect, but man, we're going to strive for it. And it's a journey. It's not a destination. We're the guardians of the future, and we feel good about where we are today, but we're going to continue to earn our iconic status going forward. So thanks for the time and great questions. And I learned a lot about myself today.
I don't want to be too cheesy, but I know that Thomann will love to help you along the journey. Sure. And I hope you to come back soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you to the guys for watching.
Yeah,
and you can get back to work now. We're finished.
Exactly.
And you've got to fly off to Amsterdam.
I do, yeah. But again, thanks for the opportunity and great questions and great setup here, man.
JC, thank you so much.
Cool, man. Thanks.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.